Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to session 5 for the day 1 of FPSO World Congress Live 2020. You will be seeing a lot of me, so do bear with me. I'd like to bring Dave back to introduce the next speaker, Vincent from Schneider Electric. So Dave, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. So welcome back, everybody. Got a good presentation now from Vincent Jacquemet, Digital Consulting Director, Oil and Gas, Schneider Electric. Vincent's going to talk to us about from digital twin to optimized design and sustainable operations, FPSO success stories. That's what's been nice about today so far. We're actually hearing a lot of success stories in spite of the challenges that we're seeing in our industry right now. Vincent has over 25 years experience all over the world in a variety of positions in finance, strategy, mergers, acquisitions, marketing, and energy and automation domains. And during his career at Schneider Electric, he's been an active member building the oil and gas strategy for the group, identifying key areas for growth. As Digital Consulting Director for Oil and Gas, he develops the EcoStruxure digital platform to find new ways to support and partner with oil and gas partners. So hopefully he'll share that with us today. So I wanted to introduce Vincent and hand over to him. Vincent.
Thank you very much, Dave. I trust you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you, Vincent.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you, Dave. Good morning, good evening, everyone. That's a real pleasure for me to be here with you again, even if we're doing, unfortunately, this virtual event. But still, thanks for being here with us. So Dave introduced the topic for me today. Let's take a quick look at what will be our agenda today. I will to begin with, I will touch on the climate energy challenge. I want to share a few insights with you, as this energy and climate challenge is really the nexus of the current situation we are in. Then I will go over the FPSO market, share a few updates and data and things that have probably already been touched on a little bit. Then I will take you through a few solutions we believe can make it to manage the energy transition. Then we'll deal with some digital transformation solutions we have initiated and launched together with our clients and partners, and then we'll be concluding. I will start how not to say something about the COVID crisis. I think what we see today, and this picture shows the outlook of the market as it was forecasted a few days back by World Oil, and somehow we're all looking for having this V curve ahead of us. And what we see different scenarios, obviously depending on the recovery. And but what seems interesting and promising is having forecasts that show that we should reach $50 and more per barrel within 1 year, maybe 2 years, depending on the speed of the recovery. But still, once we've said this, I think we have to recognize that we really reached what has been called by BP's CEO a pivotal moment in our history. And why so? Because basically for the COVID crisis just ended a 70 years continuous growth increase in the demand of energy in the world. And for the first time, this has ended. And we have to recognize as well that things are changing, because when you look just at 2016, 4 years ago, the World Economic Forum was reporting what was perceived as the most important, the highest concerns in terms of global risk on the short term. And here you can see the top 5 of them. And you only read things about geopolitical concerns, about employment concerns, and no one single risk related to climate change to environment, while this is 4 years after, meaning just this year, the top 5 risks perceived by the global shapers, which are basically, those people in charge of driving our businesses, our companies, our thought leaders and political responsibles. They see 5 environmental risks on top of the most important and highest concerns for the world today. So climate and environment was not on the agenda, and it is today the main agenda in terms of sustainability. So this is why during the COVID crisis, I wanted to take some time to understand just a little bit about the physics and the chemicals of that relationship in between climate and energy. And actually, that's quite simple, and most of us know that. But CO2 is just chemically inert in the atmosphere when it has been released. And actually, all the CO2 that has been released in the atmosphere is and will stay for 100 years and for 1,000 years in the atmosphere. And then this climate change is just an accumulative process. Once we have released those CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, they still and they drive the climate. And it makes that today, actually, the climate drift until the mid-century is already embedded into the past emissions. So this is why, this is this big concern for the society, for the youth, for our children's generation, because what we start doing now and will only have some impact on the climate drift within 20, 40, 50 years. And this is also probably and this is the reason why when we commit on climate change, plus 1.5 degrees, plus 2 degrees, I mean, already it's a given. When you look at the different scenarios, this is what you can see on the right-hand side. Most of the scenarios already converge to this temperature increase by 2040, 2050. So this is a bit, this drama of the horizon. The actions we cannot take today, if we stop emissions today, then we will only start to see benefits after decades. And this is why, it has taken a lot of time to increase the global consciousness about this climate drift. But obviously, COVID has accelerated this phenomena. Let's take a final look at what are the consequences of a few degrees more. On the left, this is the map of Europe about 20,000 years ago. So as you can see, the sea level was 100 meters lower than it is today. That water was just stored in the form of an ice shelf on top of Scandinavia and Scotland, a 3,000 meter thick ice shelf. There was no temperate climate at all in Europe. So you can imagine what it represents. And this happened in 20,000 years. So just imagine if we get a few degrees more in just 100 years. So this is a massive, massive change, a massive impact. And it is commonly agreed, considered today, that a change above +2 degrees during the century would be something very hardly manageable from an adaptation standpoint for our social systems, for economic systems, for our companies, and just for us and our people. So I will stop with this, just saying that this energy climate challenge has been taken very seriously by our company, Schneider Electric. For years, we have been taking commitments, we have been reporting on our sustainability strategy and the improvement we make. Just a few words in a nutshell. So we are a big global company. We're doing about 27 billion revenues last year, plus 40% in different new and emerging economies. We're more than 100,000 people. And we have mainly two businesses. One refers, and the first one refers to energy management systems. And the second one is about industrial automation and industrial software as well. So as I was saying, we are taking very serious commitments on sustainability, and actually we have engaged actions to be neutral in our operations on scope 1 and 2 by 2030, and we have taken the commitment to have a net zero CO2 supply chain by 2050. So how do we, our mission basically for our oil and gas clients is to help them in this transition towards more sustainable operations. And how do we do this? We do this with our EcoStruxure set of offerings for the oil and gas, comprising 3 levels, from the connected product to the edge control systems and the applications and softwares. Aviva is a 60% subsidiary of Schneider, and this is our engine for all the industrial software offerings across the life cycle of your assets. Actually, Aviva was formed 2 years ago by the merger of the legacy Schneider software business and the Aviva industrial platform for design and engineering. And that combination that makes it today a consistent portfolio that integrates the entire life cycle of tools that are needed to manage your assets from the very early design stages to the operations. And we are quite proud to inform you, if you didn't know that yet, that last week, actually, exactly 1 week ago, Aviva announced the acquisition of Osisoft, the very well-known Osisoft Pi solution for data collection, aggregation, and actually setting that information framework that is required to improve the operations. So we're very proud to have Osisoft within this Aviva portfolio, and we see great complementarities. So let me just dig a little bit on the FPSO market. Okay, the market has been hit by the COVID. So far, we only had 2 awards this year with the Sangomar and the Mero 3 project. Maybe another one coming this year. Interestingly, the forecast last year, when we spoke exactly 1 year ago, the forecast was looking at maybe 6 or 7 deliveries this year. So that's just 1/3 of it. We know that operations have been stacked, delayed in the different yards, starting in Asia, beginning of the year. But still, the market outlook is looks quite positive, with about 40 FPSOs to be delivered from 2021 to 2024. So that looks like a good, an interesting outlook. Now the point is that the current situation, allows to execute the backlogs, the existing backlogs that have been built in between 2017 and 2019, and that makes us and the market feel maybe rather in a better position than it was in 2016. So that's a good point. I want to touch, as we did last year, a little bit on those two, on the cost discipline, the cost imperative today for our industry to thrive in this new energy transition landscape. So the costs have been actually quite under control if we compare to last year's, with only with actually a very slight decrease in the upstream index cost, minus 1% compared to last year. If we just look at the decade, I mean the 2010 decade, then we see that somehow 4 years ago we have reached a plateau. On this index has reached the plateau. Then it raises the question, what's next? And we know that the cost competitiveness is a tremendous challenge. So what's the next step in terms of cost optimization? And especially as about only 40% of the FPSOs that were planned to be delivered in between 2021 and 2019 and 2021 had break-evens below $50 per barrel. So that's an interesting challenge, and maybe the period is the opportunity to improve the original designs and engage into those different initiatives to reduce capex and opexes on the project. So this was for the cost discipline, but we cannot, not mention the carbon discipline, which I think is one of the good and great outcomes of this current crisis. There is no more time, to delay the carbon initiatives, and our industry, obviously, as it, basically represents about 42% of the global GHG emissions. Even though only 20% of those 42% emissions are produced within our operations. 80% are obviously related to the usage of the oil and gas products. But still, we just have to have in mind that there has been a tremendous acceleration in terms of commitments for reduced carbon footprint from the main European IOCs. But 3 years ago, no one company had made any commitment in terms of carbon reduction. This is Shell who made the first commitments in terms of reducing their emissions by 50%. And then the other companies followed suit. But before that, there was no commitment. And today, most of those companies are committing to multi-energy strategies, have set carbon intensity targets, have set internal carbon pricing, have linked the compensation of their executives to the achievement of the reduction in terms of carbon and so on. So that move, they are on the move, and funds, energies are recognizing that they are on the right way, even though looking at and analyzing those commitments, it is considered that they are so far not sufficient to cope with the commitment of limiting the global warming to plus 1.5 degrees. So that pressure from the environment and from the funds and independent companies will continue, and it will probably even increase. So we have to be ready for it. And here I just wanted to share with you this interesting benchmark established by Wood Mackenzie, looking at the net PV of oil and gas assets by ton of CO2 emitted and analyzed with the post-capex margins per barrel. So that's a way to analyze the resilience of the oil and gas assets to two factors. First one, an environment where oil prices would be lower for longer. And secondly, an environment where carbon would be taxed and in a context where we can anticipate an increase in those taxes. So this is to show that resilience, business-wise, and in terms of sustainability as well, very, very interesting. And actually, maybe you can't see it on the screen, it's too small, but you will find that upstream assets and ultra-deep water assets are showing some good resilience actually. Energy transition. So, what's happening basically today? The major oil and gas companies are engaging into two main transitions. The one is going for greener businesses, and the second one for greener operations. Just for the illustration, greener businesses. Very recently, I think BP announced that they would engage investments to reach 40% of their business into new energies. And they will drive their capexes towards those new energies. Greener operations, we talk mainly about scope 1 and 2 GHG emissions. And this is very much consistent with the SDG number 13 around the climate actions. So how those companies are going to undertake those two transitions, actually by putting together different initiatives in terms of decarbonization, energy efficiency, and electrification. So most of those technologies are existing at different stages of maturity, obviously. But the good thing is many of them are already existing. Today, I will really focus on those scope 1 and 2 emissions, dealing with how we can optimize the designs, how we can improve energy efficiency during the operations, and we'll deal with the digital aspect of it. Because actually, it's like the challenge in digital transformation. Technology is one thing, but the transformation is another challenge. And to drive that transformation, you need the right information management framework. And actually, this is just to share our experience. What we did many years ago at Schneider Electric, we have developed our own methodology for CO2 measurement and CO2 reporting. So we have a robust methodology, so we can report on our sustainability achievements consistently over time. And we can tell our customers, hey, look, by utilizing our technologies, you'll make that kind of savings. You have a footprint by using it, obviously, but you'll make those savings. And the second pillar of this information management framework is obviously the platform, the data and the information platform that is needed to make it. Just a word on electrification. So we most of us know that Norway is kind of benchmark, when it comes to CO2 intensity, in terms of kilograms of CO2 by barrel on the offshore. Norway is that benchmark with 7 kilos by barrel on average. But it comes from a long history, actually. In Norway, flaring was banned in the 70s. A carbon tax scheme has been implemented in the early 90s, and Norway has already engaged programs such that 50% of its production is set to run on power from the shore. And here we have a kind of emblematic example with the Johan Sverdrup offshore field, which is powered from the shore. And today the emissions are less than 1 kilogram per barrel, with quite low costs on the capex cycle and the opex cycle, as you could see. So at the end of the day, bottom line, they have reduced emissions by 80 to 90% in this field. But there are other ways to electrify and to reduce emissions in the field. Another way is, again, it is in Norway, but that's to mention the wind farm that is implemented, that has been decided, and that should come on stream on 2022, I think, and which will power different platforms in the North Sea, but only meeting a third of the energy needs of those platforms. So it will complement we complement in terms of energy supply the operations, but still will reduce emissions and will reduce actually the tax burden attached to those emissions as well. So that's a very good deal, both from a business perspective and from an environment perspective. Another way to reduce emissions is while looking at getting some economies of scale in the energy we're using, is to create floating concentrated power hubs. So studies have been made in Brazil, and they seem quite promising, showing economies in the range of 25 to 30% in terms of CO2 emission reduction. So that was for electrification. Another set of initiatives is around energy efficiency. Here, I'm going to talk about variable speed drives, quite basic, very well-known technology today, and just a basic kind of application to drive energy efficiency, energy savings, CO2 emissions savings as well in the operation. We know that technology, I think the point is to say that by implementing drives, you also put in place the system that will allow you to collect some data that will give you better control and better management of your operations. So there is also a kind of digital advantage in implementing this, because you get better informed on your operations and you can start engaging into kind of predictive maintenance applications by having these functionalities. And to start with, we have that experience. One of our division is engaged in energy and sustainability services. So you do some audit, you identify the most valuable energy conservation measures, and you implement. So what's interesting is you usually have very short paybacks, around 1 to 2 years, and you can save hundreds of dollars and reduce energies up to 60% plus, depending obviously on the use case. So that's one of the basics in terms of efficiency. Another one, quite well known, and I think this deserves more attention, especially as it allows to rethink the designs and the power architectures of our FPSOs and upstream assets, and to optimize them from design, by really considering energy architectures which are fit for purpose for the process and meet the process requirements, and really design the most effective power systems for the need of the processes. So you do this by decreasing the voltage, by decreasing the short circuit currents. At the end of the day, we have been able to demonstrate that savings can be up to 45% in terms of size, in terms of footprint of the electrical system, and we can reduce its cost by 20% and reduce the subsequent emissions, obviously, of the system. So the point is, you need to engage this very early, obviously, when starting the very early design engineering studies of your project, and it has to be collaborative. I mean, and this is the way we want to engage with our customers. Another initiative in terms of energy efficiency is to put together the view of the different disciplines on your operations. So this picture shows the control panel for a plant where you have together the process information, the energy information, and the asset management information, so that whatever happens in your operations, you can directly access to the equipment, to the process data. You can run some simulation, and at the end of the day, prevent any downgrades, any failures, and have then a better control of your operations. At the same time, it allows to, by putting those two systems together, you'll find some savings when designing the solution, and you'll find savings while in operations as well. So that's it for the energy efficiency solutions I wanted to share with you. I'll move to the next topic, which is about the digital and the digital transformation. I found this quote from Bill Gates, and just the point is to say it's really about questioning ourselves what drives the value in our operations. That's the digitalization in that perspective is only the mean. What's valuable is the information, and what makes you different from another one is the way you manage that information. So information is really at the heart of this of the value we are extracting from our businesses. We know that, but I make the point because many times over their digital transformation journeys, companies have maybe not enough effort, time, resources, thoughts on what it was they wanted to achieve. So the point is, how do you make all that information useful, actionable? And that's the journey we have to start. We have to start in each and every businesses we have, because there are so many data everywhere, different data formats, structures, volumes. We have to make sense with those data, put them into their context, make them consistent in the way we relate them to each other in terms of the objectives they serve, the way they are managed in the operations through different processes we have. At the end of the day, you need to articulate this with different tools. You need to have your data platform architecture models, and you need your system architecture. And this is, at the end of the day, what makes it a useful and actionable information, which allows you to improve really your business. I pasted a picture about ADNOC Panorama Command Center, which is one of the most exciting experience we've had with our customers. I really encourage you to have a look at what they said recently in terms of how they are benefiting from having set this information system, and today how can they leverage it to improve their operations. And as we were talking about sustainability and digital, that's exactly about the same. The point is, we have to build trust towards our environment, toward the investors on what we are doing. So they have to trust our reports. Our reports are to rely on some standard methodologies, recognized methodologies and indicators, because our strategies are under scrutiny more and more. And as I said before, you have organizations like the Transition Pathway Initiatives, which is just benchmarking the commitments taken by our oil and gas companies and make recommendation on that. Then you have to do all the way back, looking at, okay, what are our commitments? How should I report on those commitments? What are the tools I need to manage my energy and my sustainability commitments in the different use cases? I have to produce my reporting. I have to increase my energy efficiency. I have to better purchase my energy or manage my energy in my different sites. I have to identify those energy conservation measures that will help me. So where are all those data? Those data are in different systems. They are in systems, they are manual. So you have to organize and orchestrate the entire collection of that data to make sure you will really be able to leverage all that data and information and make it useful for the purpose of validating, improving your sustainability strategy. And actually, this is what the digital twin approach brings. You know, I won't come back on the definition of the digital twin. It sits basically on an information system which makes sure the data is captured, organized, interlinked, so we put it into the context of what we want to do. And then that information system will allow to provide the visualization tool, the real-time support to make decisions. So this is what we have been doing in different, in many cases in the offshore industry with our clients, helping them setting the basics for those information management systems. And those tools with the digital twin capabilities allow to manage the carbon footprint at every stage of the project. Very early in the design, you can account for the carbon footprint of your designs, of your engineering work, and you can use tools to simulate different scenarios and check and compare their carbon footprint. Once you're in operations, for instance, you can simulate different process scenarios to optimize energy consumption and then reduce subsequent emissions. And obviously, this brings the data layer databases that are needed to make your reports, to measure your carbon emissions and reports at the end of the day on your commitment. So that's really digitally enabling your sustainability strategy across the life cycle of your assets. I want to take an example. Like we commented on that case last year. It was just the beginning of this P50 digital twin in South America with Petrobras. So they have built the digital model, 3D model on the top side for 3 key processes, and then started to implement advanced cases in terms of predictive maintenance, in terms of connecting the workers, supporting them with technology during the maintenance operations. And this phase 1 has been completed. And there were some interesting key learnings that were reported by Petrobras on this digital twin experience. They recognized that that was not a huge cost in terms of upfront investment required to start building this digital twin. Also, it was a significant piece of work to collect the different data, engineering data about the FPSO, and this is a common thing. I mean, while starting those digital twin initiatives, at the end of the day, there is some investment to put the data together. Having in mind that the laser scanning can be leveraged to complement those pieces of data. So that's one thing as well. But the interesting point, I think, from Petrobras was to say that this digital twin has delivered benefits while building the digital twin model. They have had benefits in terms of document searching, in terms of process improvement. So as they were building up the digital twin, they were already gathering some benefits out of it. Another digital initiative I want to mention is about
Vincent, we're running out of time.
That's my that's my last slide, Dave.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. This is an initiative we have launched actually with Aviva and Doris Engineering last year. We started last year and launched it this year to accelerate the digital twin within the market. And we already started to work and have identified different use cases we want to bring to the market. And this is an answer to one of the conclusions of the FPSO Congress last year. I think everybody recognizes that more collaboration is needed, and this is a way for us to engage into it. And we're happy to discuss this. So I will conclude then, Dave. I think in the previous presentation, I think we had the question, how far, and how fast are we going into this digital transformation? And frankly speaking, I don't know. I think maturity is globally increasing, but it's very hard to say. What is for sure is that for sustainability, we have to accelerate now, and we have to deliver now. Electrification sets a very interesting benchmark for the industry. We're seeing the example in Norway. There are existing energy carbon efficiency measures from existing technologies, existing expertise in terms of optimization of the power and process design that can be leveraged very early on the project, and that can be even implemented while redesigning assets. And third, I think the digital twin is really what puts it together, engineering, process, energy, sustainability, and the entire life cycle. So this is why we have built this alliance with Aviva and Doris, and we'll help our customers in delivering. So that's it, what I had today. Thank you very much. Sorry they'll be a little long. Hope you had a good session, and I want to thank you. I'm ready to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
That was great. We don't have time for questions, but I would encourage people to come to the virtual booth and visit with people from Schneider, Aviva, Vincent, folks there through the main part of the app. We've got a short film coming up about Schneider right now, so I'll hand back to Jamie. But thanks again, Vincent. Very useful. I'm going to follow up some questions with you later.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Vincent and Dave. Apologies. Thank you. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have time for questions, but yes, like what Dave mentioned, please head over to the virtual exhibition booth and visit the Schneider Electric virtual exhibition booth and connect with any of the representatives there to ask them any questions you like. Now, next up on our power demonstration video series, we actually have two videos for you. And the first one is from Schneider Electric and Rockstack as well.
With the lightning speed of business and the unrelenting pressure to increase throughput, industrial assets are being pushed harder than ever. This continuous strain poses real threats. Any shutdown in operations could impact production output. Unplanned downtime at a strategic production facility could create a serious flow-on effect with a major economic impact. Or worse, an incident could also come at devastating human and environmental cost. In this context, managing a plant has never been more demanding. Managing operational risks with confidence is key to ensuring greater safety of people, production, and profit. EcoStruxure Plant, Schneider Electric's open IoT-enabled architecture, makes the job easier. It helps drive measurable operational profitability improvements safely. Using analytics and Schneider Electric's real-time accounting approach, EcoStruxure Plant helps you control and measure risks in real time, automatically or manually, and provides your employees with tools that empower them to become performance managers. For example, EcoStruxure Triconic safety systems automatically send your maintenance manager easy-to-understand alerts through their Safety Instrumented Functions Manager software. These alerts include possible causes and solutions to abnormal conditions, so issues are addressed before an incident occurs. These and other tools provided by EcoStruxure Plant help your workforce understand the impact of their decisions on overall efficiency, reliability, and safety risks, which helps you make your operations more efficient, more reliable, safer, and more profitable. With connected products, edge control, and apps, analytics, and services, EcoStruxure Plant enables the scalable design and operation of connected systems with best-in-class cybersecurity built in at each layer. That's innovation at every level.
I'm really in the machine room of the plant. The machine room is where the power distribution is. So you need to imagine, hundreds of cabinets of this side where you have power distribution, medium voltage, low voltage, and then what you see here is a motor control center. The motor control center is connected usually to a motor, of course, not of the size that we have here, but these are pretty large pieces of equipment. Sometimes they go into the range of megawatts, so they can fill half a room here, and they operate pumps, they operate fans, they are close to a compressor, and so forth. And they are, of course, connected to the DCS system that you see up here that may be in the same or maybe in an adjacent room. Now, what's totally relevant and what people haven't believed in the past, that we can go all the way from the electrical equipment and the motors into the DCS system. And the DCS system you would see in the control room here. And that's where the people operate the plant. Now, in case we would have an error on one of those motors, then usually this is where the panic breaks out and people want to make sure that they keep the plant under control. And this has been extremely simplified with the integration of, we're coming from power through the DCS system or the process control system now to the software, because if they look at the error here, they can see the error is at a pump. And then one could immediately look at the 3D model of the plant, and that's where AVEVA comes in.
Yeah, and so we're in a de-ethanizer. We're in a pump that's involved in the flow of the feedstock into and out of that de-ethanizer. And so now we want to go from this operational view. We know there's a problem with the pump. So now look at the how that looks to the capital view. So maybe if we can just look to the 3D display at the top and ahead of just slightly to the right of Peter there, you'll see this 3D view, and that is the asset view. You're now looking at that same pump that you saw in a 2D schematic. You're now seeing it in the context of the electrical control system. You're now seeing it in the 3D context. So now you're able to switch from the design view to the operated view, which would be really important if now you needed to do something with that pump to correct it.
And what you need to imagine is that this is all happening context sensitive, and that's the change to the past, and that's the clear advantage of being totally integrated. So on the process control system, you go with your cursor to the pump, and then on the 3D model, automatically you can see where that pump is located. Now you see that here in such a plant you would have a certain redundancy. That means if one pump fails, you have another pump there. So before you go out and get this pump fixed, you want to understand what's the performance of the second pump here. Is that going to be potentially failing in the future? And that's where you would call, in larger plant, the so-called reliability center. And in the reliability center, we have quite a bit of AVEVA software running. For example, here, our asset performance management suite of products. And Craig will explain what we can do with that.
So this idea of asset performance management, when you have downtime, it's okay as long as it was planned. You don't want it to be unplanned. That's very expensive. So in this situation, we know that there's a pump, we know it has an issue, and we're about to switch over to a second pump. Now, of course, we want to look at the information around that second pump to be sure that is it going to be reliable. Well, it turns out we've been capturing all of the operational data of that pump over a long period of time, and based on that, we can predict when it would fail or not fail in the future using some artificial intelligence and some machine learning. And so we're able to look at that before we actually activate the switch over to the backup.
Right, and then with the same asset performance management suite, you would actually send out the service engineer. He will get his work order. He will look at his mobile device. He will have all the data plus the 3D model, everything on his mobile device as he does the service on site. Now, what you also could do prior or after the service, you can calculate with our profit advisor automatically what's the profit impact for the company or for the plant that you would have. Now, I understand, of course, this is only a model, so let's see how that could look like at the customer side.
Yeah, we've talked before about Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, or ADNOC, and we've talked before about how in 8 weeks we were able to deliver Schneider Electric and Aviva software together.
Can we have the slide?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Together into what you see here, which is a 50-meter wall, visually breathtaking, 100,000 data points across over a dozen different operating companies, rendered in real time into this digital view of into Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. This was the foundation of our work together. So they're very proud of it. We're very proud of it. This formed what ADNOC now call Oil and Gas 4.0 as part of their digital transformation. Now, I want to come back to, now the customer says, well, this is great. Now, how can I drive productivity improvement? And we've gone in with that account team, that coverage model we described earlier, and we worked with them around 2 scenarios. First, asset performance management, we just talked about.
Yep.
So looking at a certain asset class, predicting when it's going to fail before it fails, dramatic improvement in productivity. And secondly is optimizing the feedstock. So looking at the sulfur content of oil coming out of the ground, optimizing where that gets routed to the refinery capacity, to the storage facility, to the vessels at sea, to the spot market prices. Every optimization in this end-to-end point, by ADNOC's words, is over $50 million of economic value generated. And we're just getting started with ADNOC.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure you guys know, with the challenging times that we are all at the moment, one very critical element for all FPSO projects is, without a doubt, operational safety. And today I'm very pleased and honored to have with us Morten from Roxtec International, who is going to bring us through a couple of products as well as software and methodologies that Roxtec actually has in view of operational safety for the FPSO industry. Morten, please join me in giving a brief introduction about Roxtec International.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie. It's a pleasure being here. And I wanted just to start with a short presentation of the company. I mean, Roxtec is a Swedish-owned company founded in 1990. It's privately owned by a company called Midgard that owns a number of other Swedish companies, actually. So, and our CEO, Mikael Helmersson, has been around for I think it's 7-8 years. And during his time, we've managed to double turnover and expand to even more markets. So it's really a business that has been growing based on relevance for the past, let's say, almost actually 30 years. So we have we have 27 subsidiaries worldwide, and covering all kinds of business. And the most predominant business we have is obviously, let's say, where we were born, which would be the business area marine and offshore oil and gas. So actually, we are a team of 34 consultants, to be precise, working worldwide, coordinating international projects throughout the entire life cycle, basically. So that's the Roxtec team. And for myself, will be your speaker today. My name is Morten Gustavsen. I'm from Scandinavia, Denmark, and I work as Global Segment Manager for offshore oil and gas. I've been working for the company for the last 10 years through dealing with sales and management. So that's a little bit about me, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you, Morten. So I'm quite interested to find out, I'm sure with the whole pandemic, there has been increased focus on safety. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how that has affected or impacted Roxtec, or your approach towards this?
Yes, of course. I thought we would take sort of an approach from a helicopter perspective during this session. And I mean, Roxtec is a product manufacturer, but why are we here? What drives the business, and how do we contribute to that? And I would say that from a sort of overall perspective, obviously, Roxtec is a safety system. Normally, we say it's more like a life insurance. It's something you never hope you will be forced to use. But when it comes down to the fact of an incident, you want the system to perform. So it's all about safety. It's all about reliability. And from top down, we have the international authorities. They have had an increased focus on safety integrity. It's also now for cable and pipe transits. The thing is, let's say from top down, SOLAS regulations under the UN, which would be the world, so to speak, International Marine Organization, it's quite clear when it comes to safety systems on board. I mean, this is more like a quote: any installed safety system shall perform accordingly to prevent any given breach of safety. And what that means is, obviously, if you buy a car, you would expect it to drive when you need it. And with safety systems, any kind of equipment, you would expect it to work. So obviously, how to verify that over time. And allow me to continue, Jamie.
Go ahead.
If we look at the International Association of Classification Societies, we all know that historically it started with steam engines, industrialization, and realizing after a number of explosions that you needed somebody to class the equipment in order to make sure that you had safety operational equipment. So this is the whole logic where we all come from, basically. And until today, traditionally, there has been, not from IACS, the classification societies, but the business in general, there's been a focus on automated firefighting systems to stay in our courtyard. And that means that automatically when you have something that runs on power, you have to verify it. You have mechanical moving parts and so forth. You need to check on a regular basis, annually, 5-year, and so forth. There is a cycles for this. But a passive firefighting system, such as a modular sealing system as Rocketech, I mean, you put it in there during nuke build and you forget about it for like 25 years. Then you have a disaster, you have an incident, and all of a sudden you're hoping that this will perform after 25 years. There is a huge probability that it will. It's not moving parts, it is in there. So, but even so, obviously there is an increased need, and people realize that we have to check the systems as well. So, and other examples is watertight hatches, lifeboats. There is a number of regulations for that. And as we see, let's say here on the pipes, look in the cards, it's a fact that also there is an increasing focus on cable and pipe transit seals. So, continuing a bit with your permission, Jamie.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And just to look a bit at how we sort of deal with this, let's say, what's our solution or suggestion for a solution here? We think it's about time is an important factor, of course. So we have to deal with the cycles of life. When you have, let's say, an FPSO, you have a keel laying date. From that moment, we have to have focus on this. It's all about safety, design, lifetime aspects, future included, and so forth. So you have a cost-optimized safety solution. And what we did here was, obviously, everything needs to be digital today. So we've been investing, and this is just like an example saying, obviously, you need a full covering product range. You need product that serves any purpose. And to stay with the FPSOs, obviously, you have everything from hull transits, you have the petrochemical facilities, you have light quarters, accommodation, and so forth. It's a number of solutions that covers anything from fire only to, let's say, high pressure solutions deep below deck. So, and obviously you have the explosions and the gas tightness and so forth. So I would say it's not an easy task, but obviously you need to cover that as a minimum. And then obviously in terms of verification, during design, you need design tools that are compatible with the 3D CAD systems that are operating and used most commonly. You need somebody to inspect and verify that it's actually what you buy is what you get. And you need a registry so you can keep a track of this over time. All of this is obviously a part of the value proposition from Rocketech. Design support, I mean, we can have people in any office worldwide within half a day, I would say. Mm-hmm. So we are present, obviously. Design engineering, online, on site, that's why we call it that. Accredited service support, we have accredited inspectors ready to deploy worldwide, offshore-wise. and are doing it on a regular basis. So obviously that's how we choose to do things in order to comply with the business demands. I think, Jamie, that was sort of a little bit of an introduction from our side to begin with. So please, back to you.
Thank you, Morten. That's very interesting. I really liked how you mentioned about, you deal with the entire life cycle. That's very important. I do have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask yourself, Morten. So first and foremost, in your opinion, what is the overall trend that's currently driving Roxtech's focus at the moment?
Well, I would say again, if we take a helicopter perspective on this, I mean, we have the mega trends driving the world in general. We have the 17 world goals, and we have mega trends like Internet of Things. And I think that when we talk about passive fire protecting systems, I think that Roxtech, as a safety system, is moving in the direction of more intelligence. We're talking artificial intelligence. Internet of Things means that things are actually communicating with each other, and to stay in the courtyard of an FPSO, you can imagine the stability testing. How many compartments can you afford to lose to the sea before you have a breach of safety? That's calculations that are done by our naval architects today. But in the future, the systems will be able to talk to each other. So those calculations will be done instantly, and you can have an alarm, an early warning, so to speak, based on the systems talking together. And obviously the transit seals, the Roxtech safety seals, are a natural part of that major safety setup. So I think that's a little bit intelligence systems talking to each other over time. That's a little bit what we are, let's say, moving towards with the initiatives we've done.
Yeah, and it's along with the trend, right? Because I think things are becoming smarter, and we will definitely need to keep up with the trend. So how does Roxtech actually comply with all these trends, and what initiatives are being taken recently?
Well, recently, I think it's like, perhaps I mean, time is flying here. So we started almost 5 years ago when we sort of looked, realizing in which directions the winds are blowing, so to speak. And so we invested heavily. And as I showed just before, we invested heavily in a digital backbone, so to speak. We needed a digital protocol for how to deal with transit seals throughout life. So again, time factor means that we have a focus on developing a system that you can actually verify, comply, and maintain over time, easily and cost effective, of course. If that answers your question, Jamie.
Yeah, it does. And also you mentioned a couple of things about development, right? So what are your thoughts on how do you think the trend for safety seals will be going forward?
I think a little bit, I would say again that it's perhaps repeating myself, but we are dealing with more and more intelligent systems, right? And in terms of product development, but obviously from another angle, systems has to be optimized as well, and they have to be cost effective. And so from a product perspective, point number one, you need systems that doesn't take too much time. So we are very much focused on developing systems that are easy to install with no hot work, no welding. You can save thousands of dollars if you can remove welding, testing, painting, all of that, safety measures and so forth. Everything is gone from one day to another with some of the solutions that we have been developing over the last couple of years. And then I would say that the other thing on the digital side, it's very much about compatibility with existing ERP systems. I mean, any major operator and FPSO owner has extensive ERP, enterprise planning systems, to, let's say, manage their entire operations. So our systems needs to be able to talk with those systems so they are not creating yet another system, another animal. So that's a little bit our focus. It needs to be simple. That's what we usually say, simplicity.
Yeah, sometimes simplicity is key. Thank you, Morten.
Sure.
Now, I want
Yeah.
to be more specific to the FPSO World Congress Live 2020. What are some of Rockstack's case studies or references and value proposition that you can share, which you believe will benefit offshore oil and gas operators as well as FPSO owners?
Well, that's a good question, and I thought about that for some time, and because there are so many references we can show eventually. I mean, as it's building up 30 years in the business, growing to be by far the biggest manufacturer of modular sealing systems. And but I chose one that I think is quite relevant for that I wanted to share with all of you today. I mean, we obviously the Brazilian FPSO market, due to the fact that they are having predominantly deep water exploration, so a lot of FPSOs is floating in that direction these days. And we had a good example of how we can bring value to an operator, an owner, with Petrobras, the P68 FPSO. And first of all, I mean, the whole idea when you have an installed base, vast as you see on an FPSO for safety systems, you are the one guy in the chair saying, am I on top of things here? And you need some support, obviously, to realize whether you're good or not. So in that case, we were called to do a complete survey, making sure that any transit on board, Rockstack or not, that doesn't matter, verify, documenting that this is your current, let's say, safety situation. And is that adequate or not? I mean, we don't want to race to the highest level. We want to be cost effective, pragmatic, so to speak. So coming up with a firm recommendation based on a review, a full stem to stern review, so to speak. And then obviously the second step is to help and make sure that the contract itself is carried out to satisfaction. But then comes the most important thing. As you can see here on this slide, you have a classroom. We don't want to be doing this every year, every 5 years. We don't want to be back. So it's all about preventive measures going forward. It's all about training, education, and awareness, safety awareness. That's what we call it. And that's so damn important. And that's all about having a life insurance that you know will perform accordingly. So I think that sort of spells it out, what it is that we can do for an owner, in this example as Petrobras.
Yeah. Thank you, Morten. And if I can just ask you to summarize your thoughts, about Rockstack in general and how you guys can actually help the FPSO industry, what will your thoughts be?
Of course. So as a summary, I mean, as mentioned, we believe that a digital protocol that complies and support throughout life is very key. And I think we've proven that during the COVID-19 pandemic, that it is basically key to have something that operates no matter what is happening around you, your surroundings. So, and then obviously the innovation, not only products, but systems as a whole. We definitely need to take this to the next level of electrical safety, so to speak. Globally, local presence, as we call it. I mean, we can have any contact in Brazil that will convey to a question in Kuala Lumpur, and eventually having a guy on site at the yard in China. That's daily business for us, and that's how we support FPSO owners on a daily, a regular basis. So I would say that kind of summarizes it, having the worldwide presence, being knowledgeable, being digital and innovative. Back to you, Jamie. I hope
Thank you. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Morten. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, if you want to get in touch with Rockstack, here are their contact information. I believe Morten will be able to share that with you. But at the same time, don't forget to check out the Rockstack at the virtual exhibition booth. You'll be able to find more information about their company, as well as, the different representatives you can speak with on their Rockstack page itself. So do head over there and get in touch with them right away. Thank you very much, Morten, for taking the time to share with us your insights. Stay safe, and I hope to see you soon.